What's up, everybody? Happy New Year. Welcome to the Hana podcast. It's Willie Paul sitting down with Pastor Elwin. Pastor Elwin, how was your New Year's?
Good so far.
Now,
Yeah.
I don't think you talked about this. I'm not sure if you talked about this in the in-person services, but what did you make? What was on the menu?
Oh, we made Lao Laos. We started this thing, I think it was last year. It started last year, kind of starting a tradition. So just homemade Lao Laos. And Brandon's been growing some kalo in his yard. So use that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, pounded some pa'iai. And what's kind of cool is that the kids starting to learn, Alana, and then of course Hoko wants to follow and copy. But just to show them, and the fact that they ate it after something they
Oh,
made with their own
yeah,
hands. Yeah, it was cool.
that's awesome.
Tradition.
So it was pork lala.
Yeah, pork lao lao,
Nice.
right? Lomi salmon, chicken long rice.
No, I heard that. All right. I ask because Brandon came over on New Year's. He drove past New Year's Eve and dropped off some leftovers.
Oh,
I have never had lomi salmon where I was able to look and identify what salmon is in there.
yeah. So it's not lomi tomato, it's lomi salmon.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you got some of that.
Yeah, it was really good. But I know that you're always like, you and Jared especially are always chefing it up. So I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. Well, actually, Jared worked.
Oh, did he
worked-
really?
Yeah, he worked. He worked Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's.
Oh, he's making that bank though.
He's a happy, young, wage earner.
Yeah. Adulting, as you said in the weekend
yeah,
message.
yeah.
Yeah. Times they are a changing, aren't they, Pastor Elwin?
It's moving, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quickly. I mean, I guess Willie, you're feeling that you're getting older because hearing that from you, you get older, time just flies, boy.
Yeah. It's definitely crazy. But you talked about in this past weekend message, you talked about just change and how not a lot in our lives is permanent and things can change, whether through our own actions, our own choices, or things that just happen to us. Life has to change. So I wanted to ask, Pastor Owen, you in the crypto game?
In the what?
The crypto game?
No, not yet. I don't know. I didn't think that was that big a deal, but when I read when that guy's blog came out and he said why it's happening, and that's part of what I wanted to use in the introduction. Not that all of it is so-called relevant to us, but I hear some of the older people, especially, life is just gonna calm down and just gonna do the same old, same old. Whether you like it or not, the world is changing around you. Things are going on around you. You may not even you don't want to watch the news. You don't want to read the paper. It doesn't matter. Change is happening around you. And so you got to learn to adjust to it.
Speaking of adjusting, I was listening to you. I was doing some other stuff on Sunday with Metro Kids and everything. But I heard the part about like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all of that. And I wanted to ask you, do you know what an NFT is?
No.
Ooh.
What is
all
that?
Right, this is live reaction right now. An NFT is called a non-fungible token, which basically, how you buy a piece of art and they give you the piece of art? You can buy JPEGs, images on the internet, and they give you a receipt saying that you own this image. And that's it. Nothing else changes. So people are doing like just drawings that are procedurally generated, so just randomized, and selling them for like 500,000.
You mean like the son of a presidential candidate or presidential person drawing stuff?
I do not know about that.
No, yeah. I'm just Biden. I don't want to get political. Biden's son does these straw paintings.
Oh,
Are they
really?
selling it for like $500,000?
Hmm. I know. Isn't former President George Bush also doing? He's like into portraits and stuff now.
Yeah, Bush is doing that. Yeah, but Biden's son is using the straw. You know how elementary school you blow the straw painting?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man, I will never understand the art world. Um,
So
but I'm
getting
glad
back
that
to
exists.
your NFT thing, so people doing whatever, just random drawings, and they're selling it online.
Yeah, there's one guy in Australia who does he like does graffiti and stuff, and then he takes a picture of it, and then he sells a picture of the graffiti.
It's a crazy
This is the
world.
future.
Yeah, yeah. We get so dependent online. Um, yeah, it doesn't make sense. If you watch the message on YouTube, by the way, speaking of things online, so on the YouTube platform, if you use a material that's copyrighted on YouTube,
Mm.
they won't broadcast it. So this last message may not be picked up by everyone if they're watching it on YouTube.
Oh, right, because at the end of the
They use that
you played the
animation.
song, might
Yeah,
have got a copyright strike.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which you can listen to it for free, you know?
Yeah,
So that's what doesn't make sense. You go to YouTube, that's how I got it. You go to YouTube, you download it, it's free, you listen to it, but I can't put that in a message. Even if I say elevation worship, you know,
yeah. Even if it's what is it, DMCA? It's like a big thing right now.
yeah. So
Anyway, we're not talking about copyright law and NFTs and all that. It's just a weird sign of the times that we're in. Um, but they do point to all signs are pointing to, as we talked about previously, that the crisis that we're in accelerates the change that was already happening. And so there was a lot of change that happened in everyone's lives over the past 2 years. And so, Pastor Owen, I know we kind of hit on this a little bit specifically for Metro, but what about for you personally in 2022? Changes, just things that you're looking forward to.
I think there's changes. Every year there's changes, and like I said, I think 2022 is going to be a year that there's a lot to do in 2022. So even if I'm getting older, and um, just in terms of the focus of my attention, and I'm still with the church, and we'll hear more as we move along. I think the anniversary will be a big day. So we're encouraging people to come in and help us celebrate, because we'll talk about some of the vision things that's going on at Metro that affects my own life, as well as others and leaders, and where we're going. We're still heading in the same direction, getting people discipled, um, but trying to figure out what is the best way of accomplishing the mission. So the mission stays the same, which is discipleship, getting people to come to Christ. But methodologies may change. The avenues we take may change.
Mm.
Listening to this podcast this morning about just a hybrid church. So how do we disciple people in this hybrid church, i.e., online as well as in person?
Mm-hmm.
This one guy was talking about the community he's from. They were totally against high tech stuff before the pandemic. Everything had to be in person, in person, in person. But when the pandemic hit, they had to pivot to online. And now it's kind of this hybrid model. And so what do we do? Do we stay with in person, or we still stay with the hybrid? I mean the online. So every leader seems to be going through that right now.
Mm.
No one has the answer for that. But that's the challenge, and we're looking at that even into this next year. Really looking at where we pour our resources into, because discipleship is very, very important, and reaching those who haven't heard the word. So
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like it's a whole different universe because I mean we have people who don't really like, who don't live here, who are like regular, I guess, attenders of Metro because of just our online presence.
Yeah.
Thinking of like Eric from the Netherlands,
Yep.
every Sunday types in. I was talking to Rachel at our church, and she was saying her grandma in Maine.
Yeah.
I almost said Wisconsin. I don't know why. Watches regularly. Pretty crazy just how there are things around the world. So
yeah,
it's exciting that we're thinking about that, and like, how do we do well with the people that are right in front of us, but then also the people that are right in front of us just through a screen, you know?
Yeah, even speaking and content of your preaching messages. This one guy was saying, pre-pandemic, you preach to the city. So whatever it is that the city is experiencing at that time, you try to incorporate that into your messages, assuming that people in your entire city is your audience, so to speak. And then when the pandemic hit and the churches were shut down, who are you really talking to? And now people are coming back in person. So where is the focus? Where is the focus? And it seems to be shifting to those that are really there, that are really there tracking with you. And so that was kind of interesting, because when you're online, you don't know who's listening. Really, you don't know. And I get people telling me things that I have just come out of the blue. Oh, we heard you online. It was really good. Thank you. I did this funeral. This guys from the mainland telling me about, they listen to it online. It's cool. So, yeah. So things.
Yeah, was at a service on a Sunday, just like walking around, and there was these people who it was their first time, and I was like, oh, hey, it's really nice to like meet you. Thanks for coming. They're like, oh, before I like said my name or anything, they're like, oh, we know you. We watched the podcast and everything. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Kind of got me off guard. But yeah, just changes in the way that churches operate, that businesses do things, that we live our lives day to day. But as we talked about, the big kind of thing in the news is, is COVID, Omicron, all of that, is it kind of, I don't want to say like settling down or fizzing out, but majority of the stuff that I've been seeing is saying that it's not over, but it's like getting better in a way, because Omicron is on its way to becoming the dominant variant, and it's less severe symptoms and everything. But man, the things that we've gone through definitely kind of changed the world forever. I don't think there's anyone who would argue that. And one of your points in the message was, don't make permanent decisions based on temporary circumstances. Pastor Owen, I was wondering what your definition of temporary circumstances are, because this COVID season, if you want to call it that, the past 2 years plus, is definitely temporary, but it is in a way almost permanent, because everyone agrees that COVID is going to be endemic and it's going to kind of just be around. So how do you look at things either on a small scale, big scale, and kind of weigh them in temporary, permanent, etc.?
I think the word that has been increased in usage in our vocabulary through the pandemic is the word pivot. You hear that a lot. Businesses need to pivot. If you're a dine-in kind of a establishment, you need to be able to pivot to delivery or takeout orders, that sort of thing. And I think using that kind of image in terms of life decisions, you have to always be ready to pivot. So just stay with church, as we're talking about church. We can't say it's going to be, based on everything that's going on, here's what we're going to settle on, and this is what we're going to do from here on out. This will be a permanent decision. It has to be in person. We don't want to waste that, because People don't know this, but it takes a lot of time, resources, time, human resources, technical ability to get a good online product. And again, we don't know who's watching it. We don't know how far it goes out. So should we say, okay, well, because the pandemic is more an endemic now and there's treatment, let's forget this online stuff. Let's just go permanently in person. Let's go back to that. I think it'd be foolish to do that. You have to always be ready and uh, able to, flexible enough to pivot on that. So don't get so locked in on something that you're not really change. The other thing I was kind of referring to, I didn't really say it in so many words, but when you get into seasons where you're struggling, especially, say like in your marriage, struggling in your marriage, oh, this is bad, or he's not changing, looks like he's going to be like that the rest of his life. So I'm gonna file for divorce. Now you got to get your own legal counsel, get your own spiritual counsel on every situation because it's different. But in just a general sense, I would caution you against making a permanent decision based on things that are going on in your marriage and all that. So that's what I meant by that.
It reminded me of the a phrase that I heard. It was basically don't make important decisions when you're really angry or really happy.
Yeah.
Because there have been times where I'm really mad and I send that text and it's like next day or something, it's like, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. Or on the opposite end, there are times where I'm like really stoked and I make plans and I agree to all these things. And then like the next week, I'm like, why did I agree to all these things? I don't even want to do any of them.
Yeah. Like don't buy like organic weight loss stuff at 2:00 in the morning.
Yes. Yeah.
So funny.
Gotcha. The infomercials hook, line, and sinker.
People's reactions when I said, so I started taking it, and then Joy looked at me and said, "So is it working? Do you have to ask?" And then people were cracking up.
Yeah, that was a good line.
Yeah.
But I know that idea of pivoting, it's really good because it kind of is able to be used in every scenario where it's not a hard and fast do this for the rest of your life or don't do this for the rest of your life. It's be ready to make changes. So how do you set yourself up, whether it's in your job and with your family, with your spiritual life, spiritual development? How do you set yourself up to be able to make those pivots?
I think understanding your mission, I said a little bit earlier, the mission always remains the same. Your methods can change. Be flexible in your method, how you get there. So say your marriage. Marriage is going to work. Marriage is something I hold sacred. I made a vow before the Lord God and my family and friends that this is going to be a relationship I will work on. Okay. So you hit tough times, whether it's financial, whether it's causes because of what you did or causes beyond your control, but stuff happens in marriage. You don't throw away the marriage. You say, no, the mission is still the same. Okay, let's figure this out. There has to be another way of doing this. Church, ministry. We want to reach people. We want to disciple people. Well, COVID says shut everything down. People are afraid to come back to church because, numbers and whatever. I can't control the news. I can't control what they're reporting. I can't control whether people get vaccinated or not. But the mission stays the same. Mm-hmm. So let's figure this out. So you got to know what your mission is, your business. Well, I'm here to do business, to serve this community, make money, of course. So I got to figure this out. And so that helps, I think. Keep your mind focused on the mission. And then let's take a look at our methods. What can we do different?
So I think it's really easy for organizations or different groups to have missions. But if you're trying to find a personal mission, like the Willie Paul mission statement, what advice do you have for crafting a mission statement for your own life?
Um, take time, first of all, pray, allow God to, the Holy Spirit to kind of open up your mind to see what's there. Take a look at, and there are books that are written on this, and take a look at, what are your gifting? What are some of your natural giftings? What are some things that you're just passionate about? Start with what you have, what you know.
Mm.
Ask other people, hey, what do you think my strengths are? When you just know me, so gather up the information, and then begin to kind of filter it down. I think your mission, your purpose, um, shouldn't be like a whole paragraph of stuff. It should be as concise as possible. Um, for me, I think if you were to break it down, I don't have it written down anywhere, but as I look at my life, um, it's always been wanting to be involved on the front end of something.
Mm.
So before the damage is done. So how do you get involved on the front end? How do I help people on the front end? I'm always there, when things happen on the back end, but how do we help people on the front end of things? And that's why I left the bench. That's why, my whole life changed. In my marriage, I want to be able to anticipate, not wait till Joy complains about, oh, you don't do this, you don't do that, So be on the front end of everything, anticipate it's going to happen.
Mm.
Because I have been guilty, of not taking care of the front end. So before I came to Christ, everything was about me. So damage was done to other people's lives, So I want to be involved in the front end of everything and use my ability, the gifts that God has given me, leadership, teaching, So.
Yeah, I like that, because if you have the personal mission, then you're able to pivot more, I want to say, accurately. Because it's really easy to get caught up in the mission of other people or other organizations and just kind of like co-opt that for yourself.
Yeah.
But you can say, oh, this no longer aligns with my mission, or like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I can't do XYZ anymore, but I can do this. And so like, I'm just going to pivot because that still lines up with my mission,
Yeah. And if you're young, don't feel that you have to nail it 100%, but get an idea, get a sense of what that may be. Because you're on this journey. You're on this journey of discovery. An example is kind of like what Jared is doing now. So, he was working in locomotion, folding clothes, retail, which was good. It was the beginning. That's his first job. And he got good experience there. But now he's wanting to be in the culinary area. Now, whether it's because of me, people say, oh, just like your dad, he's his dad. And say, well, he has to make his own choice. And he does cook well, does do things well. And it was his decision to get involved in the food establishment.
Mm.
So even as a busser, but having conversation with him, he said, Dad, so this is how they set up the kitchen, and then this section how they do this, and every Thursday they bring in this truckload of whatever, and so he's seeing the big operation, the big picture, but he's a busser, So instead of him saying, "Oh, I got to be the executive chef right away," no, his mission is one day, at least for now, his mission seems to be one day to have his own restaurant. And the method to get there are all these little steps along the way. And so that's kind of like, life, if you can use that as a metaphor for life, you have an idea where you want to go. And so the season that you're in, although seasons will change, the season that you're in is just one step to get you to the bigger picture. And so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that. And the better that you do in this season, the faster or more accurate that your final is going to come out.
Like I said, how well you adjust in that season is going to determine whether God will move you to the next season or whether you stay in the same place. Because he can be a busser and complain and break dishes and refuse to go to work and call in sick, and he'll never get to the next level. But he goes in towards the end, he said, well, man, I'm tired. I don't want to go into work. And I said, well, they're asking you to come in because I think they trust you coming in. And he always tries to get there 15 minutes early, and they see all that and they respect that. So now he's just depositing, in his account meaning his experiential account, his resume. And so when it comes time for him to move to the next season, hopefully the recommendations are there, references are there. So.
That's really cool. I like that. It kind of ties in with what we talked about, I believe it was last week, of like having that mindset of shortening the time where you just say, okay, God, like I'm going to stop trying to fight this and like let you do your thing. Just like, all right, this is the season that I'm in. I don't know why. Either it's I got myself here or I was put here against my own choices. God, this is the season that I'm in. I'm going to do the best that I can and going to trust you through it.
Yeah. This past weekend, I used Ecclesiastes 3, season for everything, time for everything. And you study the writer of Ecclesiastes, he repeats again and again, life is meaningless. It's like going after the wind. But you read the final chapter, the final verses of that book of Ecclesiastes. He says, well, here's the answer. After raising all these questions about life and the meaninglessness of life, here's the answer. Follow God. Obey God and his commands. It's basically it. In other words, God knows what's going on. He has everything in order. Just do what he's asking you to do and watch and see what he'll do in your life. We don't have to prove it. We don't have to but do what our responsibility is. But you follow the things he's asking you to do. Watch and see what he's going to do. That's the trust part. So.
That's really good. I was just listening to this podcast where they were talking about trust coming before faith, and like how when you're in a bad situation, put more trust in. It's easy for us to put more trust in the situation than it is for us to trust God, but to just say, God, I know your character. As the song says, I've seen you do all these things in my life or other people's lives, or just through the lessons of the history of the church and the Bible. And so I know that you are going to do something. And so I'm just going to trust you, Yeah. So even in these tough situations, this is something that I'm trying to write into my soul and engrave into my brain, so that in just a very short amount of time, when I'm up at 3 a.m. And there is a new child that is being wild, I can just be like, you know what? This is good. This is going to be good. I'm going to look back fondly at this,
Yep. And you wait till the second and third child comes along too.
Yeah.
They still need to have their diapers changed. They're that close. If you're going to get it done, just get it all done at one time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's as good a place to call it as any. Pastor Owen, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking time, giving a little advice. Always super helpful.
Yeah. So always want to do whatever I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your wisdom from your how do I say this as a compliment? From your long and storied life.
From the mistakes I've made.
I appreciate just you being here for not only for me, but for everybody who watches. So everybody head over to our website I forgot to talk about Connect groups, but register for Connect group, register for upcoming services, and we'll see you next week on the podcast.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
Chakas, everybody.